Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Wise Woman podcast. This is a super special episode. We have one of my best friends, Dr. Lauren Ramsey, although for the sake of this conversation, I always call Lauren Zam, which is her maiden name, Zamarilla. And we're going to have a really fun conversation today. Zam, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited we get to make this happen. You're one of my dearest friends, and I'm just so proud and inspired by everything that you're doing. So I'm very happy to be here.
This is the most fun when I get to bring in people who I truly love and I know their journey of how they became who they are. But for the sake of listeners who are new to you, new to your work, Zam and I met at University of Pittsburgh. What kind of brought you into the medical field? You always knew that you wanted to become a doctor, and then you kind of just took off from here. Where did this desire come from?
So it actually came from being inspired by another wise woman, my pediatrician. So when I was very little, 7 years old, going to the pediatrician, I just always thought that my pediatrician, her name was Dr. Watkins, she was a superhero. And I wanted to basically impress her and be healthy for her. And I just thought she was so cool. So she basically was my inspiration to go into medicine. And also, my father is a dentist, so I kind of have that, medical background in my DNA. But really, Dr. Watkins, I would say, was my, seeing a female as a doctor, she was just kind of a role model for me. So I was always drawn towards medicine. And at the University of Pittsburgh, I had like a combined program where I was in the undergraduate, where we met, and also was in the medical school. So I automatically was accepted for that. So it was a great opportunity, and that's what made me choose Pitt.
And Pitt really is one of the best schools for medicine.
Yeah, they have a great medical school, a lot of research. They really prepared me to do a lot of research studies and get you really good exposure in all the different fields. So when I was in medical school, you do different rotations in different fields. You can do internal medicine, OB-GYN, surgery, and I was really drawn towards surgery. And one of the things I like about surgery is that it's very like proactive, and you're really putting your hands on something and taking control and seeing the instant change in the result versus, like, for example, if you prescribe a medicine, you might not see a result for, several months. So surgery really kind of fit my personality, just like seeing a problem and wanting to fix it. So that's what made me decide on surgery.
And this medical University of Pittsburgh being one of the best schools for medicine is also what brought me there because they have one of the best schools for physical therapy. And that's what brought me to Pitt. And then I transferred out of that program my second semester freshman year. But just to ground this conversation, do you remember when we met? Delta, Delta, Delta?
Of course, yes. It was, well, rush week because you were younger. So Erin was basically the little to one of my best friends, Paula, who basically is her big sister in the sorority. So Paula and I were already in the sorority, and Erin was joining. We obviously fell in love with her from the beginning. She captivated us all with her personality, smile, and charm. So we basically wanted to do everything we could to get you in Tri Delta. And I was so glad that you joined. And basically, I think that we called me your aunt because I
Yes.
didn't take a little. So then, since I was technically Paul's sister, then I'm your aunt in the sorority.
And this is what it means to be friends with Zam. So the best way to understand Zam is you're like confetti. So I joined the sorority and you essentially said, I'm going to be your aunt. I'm too busy because I'm not going to take on a little because you were pre-med, you were
Yeah,
cheerleader,
cheer.
later
Yeah.
on homecoming queen in Tri Delta. So just to kind of ground this conversation and just for listeners to understand the energy of who you are, being friends with Zam in college was a little bit like a fast pass. Like we would get in line at the bar, and because I was best friends with Zam, we would just skip to the front. And little things like this and just being in your world, you took this energy of being confetti and you went out, and of course, you matched at the best school for you, and this brought you to Dallas, Texas, and you kind of continued your journey from there. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, well, thank you. That's so sweet of you to say. But I guess I do try to live my life where whoever I'm interacting with, I try to make their day better and bring some like happiness or confetti, as you say. So just kind of, going into each day with like, well, here's a day we can either we have the option to make it what we want. So I try to make it positive for people, and that's kind of just, a philosophy that I have for life. But yes, I moved to Dallas and I started my training in surgery, and yeah, it's training in surgery is very rigorous. It's a lot of hours. You don't really get much time off, and that's why having friends like you, Aaron, is just so like meaningful, because even though maybe we couldn't see each other all the time because of my schedule, we still always remain connected. And it can be very emotional because you're working really, really long hours, your sleep is disrupted, and your circadian rhythms are all off. But you just have to keep going. And it's just kind of hard work that you just basically grind for, 6 or 7 years while you're doing your training. And so after I finished my training in surgery, then I did another year to specialize in breast cancer surgery. So I stayed in Texas for that. And I really enjoy the field of breast cancer and caring for women who are, most of my patient population. And just having like a conversation like this and connecting with them. And, you're not just their doctor, but you're like kind of just a support person for them while they're going through this really emotional time. It's a really fulfilling field.
Beautiful. And I feel like today there's so many women that are getting breast cancer, young women, women our age, and it's devastating and it's scary. Why? Why is this happening?
Yeah, it's very sad. I just saw an article talking about how there's this rise of breast cancer in women under the age of 40. There's a lot of, bloggers or people on social media that I follow that have been diagnosed and don't even really have a family history. And it is very scary. And there are a variety of reasons, a lot related to the lifestyle that we unfortunately have now in our country. So, obesity we know is a risk factor for breast cancer, because actually like the more fat that your body has, you actually have an enzyme in your body that converts fat into estrogen. So if you have like excess fat, then that means that you're going to have more estrogen, and estrogen can actually fuel some breast cancers. So that's a reason. The fact that women are getting, or girls are getting their menstrual cycles earlier, and that's been a phenomenon that we've been observing, and it can be related to obesity or maybe some environmental toxins. But the more estrogen or the more menstrual cycles that you have over your life, then also you're at a higher risk of breast cancer. Another thing is that women are delaying having children until later ages. Like me, for example, I'm 35 and I'm expecting my first child. It back in the day, that would seem so old for somebody to be having the first child at the age of 35. But here we are, because a lot of us are, wanting to do our careers or travel and explore, but it's different back when people started having children really at the age of 18. So that's another risk factor as well. But there's also a lot of just like toxins in the environment. There's endocrine disruptors that can be in our plastics, and BPA, which is used to make some plastic water bottles. So there's a lot of different factors. There's not one thing that we can pinpoint. I think it's just kind of like the combination of all of those.
And when it comes to the phenomenon that we are having children a little bit later, is it because our body is biologically prepared to have kids in our early 20s, so it produces the hormones that we need during that time, and we're not using it, and that kind of turns cancerous?
Well, so you basically, when you start having your menstrual cycle, your body is producing estrogen. So when you're pregnant, though, you're not having your menstrual cycle, and progesterone takes over. Progesterone's another hormone that's like the significant hormone of pregnancy. So basically, while you're pregnant, your body's not seeing as much estrogen. And that's actually protective, because estrogen can fuel a lot of the breast cancer. So it's kind of like that balance of estrogen and progesterone. So the more times that you're pregnant, then your estrogen levels aren't going to be as high as compared to if you weren't pregnant and you just keep having those menstrual cycles.
It's so wild. My friends that are our age that have been diagnosed with breast cancer, thank God they're completely fine. But before they started chemotherapy, they did IVF. They would
Mm.
almost go on estrogen, feed the cancer to do egg retrieval to make sure that once they finish chemo, they can still have
Have
children. They can,
eggs.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough balance with that. If women, have a cancer, but they want to do fertility preservation, so basically save an embryo, we still recommend that they do that just because if you want to be a mother and you want to experience that, you can do that and we can still treat your cancers. But it is always like a tough conversation, especially now as we're seeing more women who like haven't had children yet getting diagnosed with breast cancer, what to do, like balancing the risk versus benefits of that. But if you want to do IVF, then we still have great, doctors who can help you through that and it will be okay. Like we can still treat your cancer.
So crazy, so wild. I pray
Yeah.
that everything we're talking about doesn't, you know, that it's information and we can show up and learn from it. And yeah, just understanding how this is even happening in our body, which kind of leads into your take on it and how you went to the next level. So, just for listeners to know, as Zam was in medical school, she was also getting her MBA. So, this was just something you casually did at the same time. How did you even do that?
And actually when I was doing my residency. So
Oh my
yeah, it
God.
was crazy.
Residency, yes.
Luckily I did it through American University and was a great business program, but they had an online program. So that was the way I was able to do it. So I would basically in the evenings or any free time that I had just, study and do the classes and things like that. But it was great. I loved it. I met a lot of really good people. Just doing a lot of cool things. It was very inspiring to see people's journeys, where they came from, what they wanted to do. So, because since I was just in that medicine bubble, kind of for the past like medical school and in residency, it was nice to expand and talk to people who just had different experiences.
And then during your MBA program, you learned about entrepreneurship, and that kind of got your wheels turning of looking for somewhere in your medical field, in the surgical industry, where there was a gap. And this is what led you to create that.
Yeah, so I think when you go to becoming a doctor, you have this idea that you want to help a lot of people. That's basically why we all go into medicine, and that's why people do a variety of things. Like Erin, that's why you do what you do as well. But when then you get into medical school where you start working as a resident or as a surgeon, and I am helping people. Like I can help a patient, but I'm helping them on a one-to-one basis. So if I'm seeing that patient in the office, it's me helping them. But what I realized is that I wanted to try to help people on a larger scale where I could, maybe invent something or do something. And instead of just helping that one person, I could help a lot of people, like exponential help. So I thought of this idea for the BAT, which that's BAT. It stands for breast, axilla. That's where the lymph nodes are under your armpit, and thyroid, which is a gland in your neck that helps with a lot of hormone function. So I thought about radiation, and a lot of doctors or healthcare providers, we have exposure to radiation, and that's because we do procedures that involve radiation. And unfortunately, I had a friend who passed away who was an orthopedic surgeon from breast cancer, talking about young people who have breast cancer. She and orthopedic surgery is one of the fields that they're around radiation the most. So
Wow.
it got me thinking about this link between radiation and breast cancer. And so the current aprons that we wear to protect us from radiation, they basically were just designed for men, and they don't protect the whole breast. Basically, the outer quadrant, like the side boob area, is really exposed. Yeah, so the bat basically reduces the radiation that was hitting that side boob area, which was exposed by our normal protection. So this really protects that area. And in our studies, it reduced radiation by 97% to that area. So that hopefully will reduce the risk of breast cancer and help prevent healthcare providers who work with radiation from getting breast cancer, because there's actually 3 times higher rates of breast cancer in orthopedic surgeons. And one of the theories is because of all the radiation exposure, which is shocking.
It's crazy.
It's sad that like this has just been going on, and um the protection that we wear really doesn't protect the female body.
And this is so much of also, I mean, in my field of clinical psychology, even so much of this is studying the male brain as opposed to the female brain. And I know you talk about cycle syncing and the infradian rhythm and living a phase-based cycle. And the reason this is all so fascinating is because we finally have female scientists, and this is feminism, right? So a woman's right to choose to go out into the world and pursue a medical degree. So we finally have this research or this understanding to protect yourself from radiation, you need to protect a female body differently than a male body. So crazy.
Yeah, that exactly sums it up. And I think just because, the original design for the apron that we wear for protection was from like 1950. So yeah, there first of all weren't women even making kind of decisions about, healthcare and all that stuff, but there weren't really even that many women in the medical field. Maybe there were nurses, but coming from my perspective, I have a more like executive way of level of thinking about things, and nurses maybe just kind of think, okay, this is what they're giving me. Like, I'm going to accept this, and I think that this is safe. So I think you're right. I think having like a female brain kind of evaluate things like analytically is so important, and basically in any field, because I think that there's room for improvement to adjust for more women, take just being involved in the world now.
There's so much I love about, well, there's so much I love about you, period, but especially your story and how you saw something that was wrong, like within your expertise, within your industry, and you are fixing it. And I just want to give everyone who's listening permission to reflect here, like what within your industry needs to be, what is the gap within your industry that you could fill with your brilliant idea? Where do you see the bat in 5 years from now? What kind of feedback are you getting? Are people like loving you for creating this?
Yeah, it's been really positive. The people that I share it with, we partner with some influencers on social media, who are in the medical field to get the word out. All the comments have been really, really good, especially from the women. The only, I would say, pushback that I get is actually from the hospital administrators, because it's an expense to the hospital, and so they're like, well, no one's asked for this before. And it's like, well, yes, because it didn't exist. No one even knew about it. And the analogy I make, it's like, well, we didn't ask for phones with email before we knew, like before they existed. And now we all have to have these. So it's kind of like introducing a new concept, and how do you get that to get traction. But luckily it's getting a lot of traction. It's available in every state, and it's also available internationally, but currently we're in 33 states throughout the United States, and we just did our launch in the United Kingdom, and they're really into it in the United Kingdom. I think they have a little more strict regulations, like kind of how their food's a little more clean over there. They take things more seriously, like radiation protection. So they're very, very supportive of it. So that's been good. But my goal is that basically it becomes a standard that hospitals have to have this for providers who want to protect themselves. So basically, if you're a nurse, if you work with radiation, then and if you want the bat, your hospital at least has like, 5 or 10 there for you to choose from, that you can protect yourself, because I think we deserve that. Like we're, trying to help people and trying to save lives, but we also need to be protected so our we can save our own lives.
This is kind of like the introduction of seatbelts because people are still going to
Exactly.
get their mammograms routinely and people are still going to. We started driving and it wasn't until way later on that we realized if you use a seatbelt, you're that much safer, like on your
Exactly.
commute.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And I'm sure whenever the car industry, when that was first introduced, they were probably like, oh, we don't need this. Like, it's more
Right.
expensive. We don't really need to add this. No one's asking for it. But now it's like, that's what we know to protect ourselves. And that's an awesome analogy because this is an extra layer of protection, just like a seatbelt is.
So walk us through the process of even having the confidence to build something like this.
It was crazy. I didn't really know where to start because it's basically like a garment. So I had to figure out how to design it first. So I did partner with an interventional radiologist, and we basically worked together on coming up with the design. And this is like just for the listeners out there, this just shows that if you do have an idea, like you can make it happen and just start by doing something simple. So we basically like took a t-shirt and cut it apart and was seeing how like a sleeve is made to make a pattern to make a sleeve, because if you imagine a sleeve is rounded but it has to come from a flat piece of fabric. So we cut that apart and we were just kind of playing around with how to make garments. So finally we got to the point where it was decent, but it was as much as we could do. So then I found a designer in Dallas who was incredible, and he helped just kind of like refine it. He helped put the mesh in the areas where we have mesh. So he helped develop it. And he basically made our final prototype. And once we got that, then we took it to the lab and did testing on it to make sure that it worked.
So cool.
It was awesome. And then after we had the test results, we did a paper that I wrote and we published it in one of our leading medical journals about radiation because we wanted to be validated. And then I basically had to figure out how I was going to sell it and get it out there to people. So I partnered with a company who already was in this space because they have a sales force, they have manufacturing. So I partnered with them, and they're the ones that now manufacture it and distribute it throughout the country and also internationally.
So it sounds like you started by following your curiosity. Like, here's the problem, and you started researching it.
Exactly that. And I started basically researching it and just thinking like, how can I cover up this gap that where the side boob is basically exposed. So I was like stapling paper together, making just designs. I mean, I'm an amateur. It's not like I have any experience in fashion design or anything. But yeah, I think just by like following your curiosity, and also I just remember at the beginning phases, like it's all I could think about. Like I was in the shower and thinking about it, and at night thinking about it. So if you have something that, that you're passionate about and that you want to make work, just keep thinking about it, or and just develop it, and just follow your instincts, and yeah, follow your curiosity.
I love this so much because this is the Bader-Meinhof manifestation practice, where at the end of the day, this will always be true in whatever spiritual or psychological law you follow. What you focus on expands, what you focus on grows. So if you're thinking about something and you are focusing on something, the energy around that is going to grow. That could be anxiety and depression, or that could be innovation, love, leadership, connection, healing. And the Bader-Meinhof manifestation practice is rooted in typically love of learning and curiosity, where you get really curious about the problem or really curious about the thing that you are currently obsessed with. And the thing that I want to add here is our obsessions are also what make us unique, because it's typically rooted in desire. So honor that and allow it to be either a passion or a quirk. And then once you're curious over and over, you naturally research it, you naturally have conversations about it, and it leads to an introduction or a new partnership. So for anyone who is listening that is curious about something, just continue following that curiosity and see where it leads you. And another thing that you said, Zam, that I think is so just us, you're talking about fashion, and something like a part of our relationship is whenever I'm at your house. And this was so college. If I was in college, I would just go raid your closet. All of us would. When we visited you in Dallas, we would just go raid your closet. And when John and I were moving to Austin and we passed through and we stayed at your house in Dallas on our way to Austin, I literally showed up, unpacked my bags, and I went to your closet to decide what to wear for dinner. And it's just little things like this that are so sweet.
That's so funny. Yes, I mean, my closet's definitely open to anyone. But I did want to make this fashionable because I also wanted it to look feminine and
Yeah.
I wouldn't say sexy, but it does kind of have like cuts around the breast and the current aprons basically are so ugly. They're, these giant square and they're cut all boxy. And I think it's important, like when you're at work and just bringing that feminine energy to whatever you're doing. Like, so I did want this to look aesthetic and feminine. So that was part of the goal as well. And I love the brand Figs. The listeners might know it's kind of like the new trendy scrubs that people are wearing. And they also did something very similar. We currently, the hospitals would provide, or the old scrubs were just like baggy and boxy and didn't really like fit the body, especially for females. You just kind of look boxy. But what Figs did is they brought just a little bit of style to medicine into your scrubs. And it really can just make you feel different if you just look good versus just wearing this really oversized scrubs. Of course, now I'm wearing the oversized one since I'm 6 months pregnant, and the figs, my figs are a little bit tight, but I do like the figs, but just not during a pregnancy.
This is such a special time. It's so like there's so many wonderful things happening. Another layer of our sacred friendship is our husbands. We both married Johns,
Yes.
and they're both big time Bitcoiners. And I think something really special about you too is a core theme of Bitcoin is this concept of low time preference. And that's been your life for a long time, medical school to residency to building a business. This is a slow burn. This kind of takes a lot of time. And we live during an era where people want it quick, people want it really fast. So we have quick launches, or we just want that turnaround right away. And I think also you and John kind of had a slow burn. You met, you dated, you both, went and did your own thing, and then you came back together, and you have a beautiful relationship. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we met at a housewarming party. Actually, my John had just moved to a new house and we had a mutual friend, and my friend invited me to John's housewarming party. So I just show up on his front door, and he answers the door, and um he said that he could just tell it was special from when he opened the door. And I could too. He's a little goofy, he's very sweet, he's very tall, he's charming. We just hit it off right away. So I think something that's so important is having someone that can make me laugh and have a good time with. So he always just keeps me laughing. But yeah, we dated for about 2 years, and I was kind of in the middle of my residency still, and the timing to me it just like wasn't right at that time. Like I loved him, but I wasn't ready yet just to be totally committed. And well, I was committed to him, but I think I just wasn't ready to be like married at that point just because of my work. And there was just so much going on. And I think it's hard during residency when your hours are so crazy. You're basically like married to your job at that point. So I knew that when I entered marriage, I wanted to be like fully present and fully like for him, not just like exhausted with being a resident. So we did take a little break, and I just trust that the universe will bring you back to the people who are meant to be in your life if that's meant to be. And I basically trusted the universe. And so we did take a little break, but then 2 years later, after I was done with my training and my schedule was a lot better, and I just felt a lot more ready for a man and for a marriage. Well, we reconnected, and he had matured as well. So it was very it was perfect at that point. That the timing was really right. So I always loved him, but I do think that timing is important, and you have to be in a really good place yourself if you want to enter into that next step, especially marriage. So yeah, we got married this past summer, and shortly after we found out that we were expecting a baby girl, and now we have a little one on the way coming on the 4th of July. So God has blessed us, and yeah, we're very happy.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. But yeah, I mean, obviously watching your journey as well, Erin, like meeting your John and you knew also like very quickly. And I know that you had been manifesting, but I was also so happy for you to see that. And I was so grateful that I got to be part of your wedding and be a bridesmaid. And you all had an incredible wedding. And now with Eden and your family, it's just incredible watching you grow and become a mother and a wife and all these things, but still also like still being so you as well. Like in all those roles, you're still Erin, like this fearless, like also still independent and like still the core of who you are. So it's been awesome watching you grow into all those roles.
That's why it's so fun to have this conversation because we know these different versions of self, and now we're quote unquote adults. Like we're out in the world being adults, and look at what we did, like what we came up with, and the amazing men that we brought into each other's lives. And I feel so grateful to know your John, and of course your baby girl, and of course I know your whole family. I mean, it's so deep, this connection, and it's so fun, and I'm so grateful for it. Now, with everything, you're expecting this beautiful soul baby come July. You are grounded in your job. You are building this business. How are you feeling day in and day out?
I feel really grateful. I feel that it's been a long journey and a hard journey, and there's been ups and downs for sure. But it does make me just realize that the universe or God or whatever spirit you believe in, like they will guide you. And if you just keep like working and hard and being a good person and just having trust, then like things will work out. And so I just feel so grateful. Like you look back on your life and you're like, well, that's why that happened because that actually led me to this place. And I know it's cliche to say, like, well, when one door closes, another opens, but it does. And you just look back on like if you had a heartbreak or if you had a job you didn't get or something that you thought it was your plan, but it isn't. For some reason, like that happened and it will all end up making sense. So I feel like just a lot more, I don't know, calm and at peace with like things that happen in life because everything that you get through and then when you get to a place where you feel really happy. So yeah, I just feel really grateful to be where I am, have friends like you, have my family supporting me. So, but I still work really hard. Like
You work really hard.
I'm never gonna give that up. I'm still like working hard. But yeah, I'm very grateful. That's the word I would say.
A couple years ago, a bunch of us from our sorority, Zam invited us to hang out for a girls' weekend in Dallas. And we're all hanging out, and it was like a Saturday morning, and we're all meeting for breakfast. And Zam walks into her house, and she already did her morning shift. And we like literally just woke up to kind of do the day together. You have worked so hard.
Yeah, it's a lot of early hours, late nights, working on the weekend. So it was a lot of sacrifice, but it's worth it. It's been it's been good. So, but yeah, it's at times it was hard, I won't lie, especially like when I had to miss trips or miss family events and you know, you because in residency you only get like 3 weeks off for vacation and in the month you only get like 4 days off per month, so you'll get off like 1 day a week, or if you want to stack your weekends but then you have to work those other weekends. So it was a lot of sacrifice, but I have good people in my life and I think having support is really important and people that are going to build you up whenever the times are tough.
Tell me about your relationship to God.
I have a strong relationship with God. I was raised Catholic. I did go to a Catholic school. But I'm open to, you know, it's not like I have this strong thing like, oh, you have to be Catholic or you have to be a specific denomination. But John and I do go to church every Sunday. We pray before every meal. I think praying or doing something where you're kind of connecting with your spouse or your partner and the universe. It's really grounding. And just kind of when we come together at the end of the day, we just hold hands and we say what we want. Like, we're so grateful for this day, like, or for to help us deal with challenging people at work, whatever's on our mind. And I think that that just it's a connection between you, your spouse, and the divine. And because when it comes to a relationship, like those are really three important pillars of a relationship, you know, the divine, the wife, and the husband, or the you know, the partners. So we have a strong relationship with God. I mean, I believe that God controls, God is in control, and it does make you have a little bit of a less worried perspective than in the world.
Absolutely. And then it offers you that peace when we can look back on our life and notice, oh, the door closed, but the window was open and it led me to this. And I know our shared deep belief as God girls has always been a wonderful shared connection. Zam,
Right.
this is so fun. I'm so happy to have you here. I'm so happy to share your wisdom with all the listeners. Assuming this podcast goes viral, what is some wisdom you would want to share with listeners?
I would just say, that's a great question. I would say believe in who you are. And even if you're facing challenges, know that you're a strong person. And that just by, you know, relying on friends and family to support you, but also like relying on yourself, that you're strong and that women or whoever's listening, that we're strong people. So you can get basically through anything that life throws your way. So just keep working hard, keep persevering, surround yourself with great people, have that relationship with God, and you'll get through it. And keep an open mind. You never know where life is going to lead you. Like as we talked about, I didn't think I would be doing a fashion garment for doctors, but having that open mind and just being open and remaining positive, all of those things will help you get to where you need to be.
Zam, it's so fun to be with you. It's so happy. I'm so happy. It's like it's a win for you is a win for me. How
Yeah.
can people find you and connect with you?
You can find me on Instagram at Lauren Ramsey MD. Also on any other social media, Lauren Ramsey MD. I also have a website, laurenramseymd.com. So pretty easy to remember, but all of those ways. And yeah, give me a follow on social media.
Beautiful. And all of this will be in the footnotes as well. Zam, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Erin. It's just so incredible. We've been through so many stages of life together, and it's truly an honor. This is like we probably never thought we'd be doing a podcast together for wise women when we were joining Tri Delta, but it's been so wonderful. So, and thanks for everything that you're doing to share your wisdom with all of your listeners in the world. You're one of the wisest women I know. So, it's been an honor to be your friend.
Oh, thanks, my love. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.